Chapter 9, The Great Akbar, a Case Study. In this chapter, we will learn about the third Mughal Emperor, the Great Akbar, how he ascended the throne, then how he occupied more and more areas here in India to give prestige and honor to the great Mughal Empire, and how he established friendly relations with the Rajputs, and what all policies he adopted to bring equality in India among the different societies. Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar. He was one of the greatest ruler of the Mughal dynasty as well as the greatest ruler of India. He was born in 1542 at Amarkot in Rajasthan, and he brought glory, prestige and power to the empire, and therefore is also called Akbar the Great. After the death of Humayun in 1556, Akbar was proclaimed as the king, means he ascended the throne, and at that time he was at a very young age of 13 years and 4 months old. As Akbar was too young to take over the responsibilities of a ruler, Bairam Khan, the tutor of Akbar and one of the loyal officers of Humayun, was appointed as his regent. Regent means a person who rules on behalf of king. The Mughal Empire at this time had just been re-established and was therefore not very strong. At the time of his accession, Akbar was threatened by enemies from all sides. The Rajputs and the Afghans were waiting for a suitable opportunity to expel the Mughals from India. Expel means to force somebody to leave a country. Expansion and consolidation of the Mughal Empire under Akbar. Expansion means adding more and more areas or territories to the already existing territorial boundaries, whereas consolidation means uniting all the conquered territories or areas under one single power. Early conquests of Akbar. Among the early conquests of Akbar, the Second Battle of Panipat was fought in 1556. The Afghan Emperor Adil Shah, who was the nephew of Sher Shah Suri, wanted to occupy the throne of Delhi. Therefore, Adil Shah sent a large force under his general Hemu and occupied Agra and Delhi. In November 1556, a fierce battle was fought between the Mughals and Hemu, and this battle came to be known as the Second Battle of Panipat, in which Hemu was defeated and was captured and executed. With this, the power of the Afghans was crushed, means ended in India, and the Mughals again reoccupied Delhi and Agra. A few years later, in 1560, Akbar ended the regency of Bairam Khan and took over the administration in his hand. He decided to annex more territories so that the Mughals could become the supreme power in India. First of all, Akbar strengthened his control over Gwalior and Ajmer. Then, in 1562, the Mughal forces annexed Malwa. In 1564, Akbar attacked the kingdom of Gondwana. Its queen Rani Durgavati put a stiff, means bold resistance against Akbar and died while fighting. Rani Durgavati fought 51 gallant, means bravery wars against many foreign invaders during that time, including the Mughals 3 times, means he had 3 battles with the Mughals but never lost a single battle. That was the glory of our Indian queen Rani Durgavati. The Rajputs. Akbar realized in his early life that he needed support from the Rajputs to consolidate his empire. So he offered them his friendship and took various measures to gain the loyalty of the Rajputs. He adopted two methods to gain the loyalty of the Rajputs, that is, the direct conquest, means through direct wars, and matrimonial alliances. Direct conquest means through wars, and matrimonial alliances means making the Rajputs relative of him by marrying the Rajput princess. Akbar defeated the Rajputs but did not humiliate them. He treated them with respect and allowed most of the Rajput kings to continue ruling over their territories, and decided not to interfere in the internal matters of their kingdom. He entered into matrimonial alliances with the Rajput families and married a Rajput princess called Jodha Bai. His sons also took Rajput princesses as their wives. The Rajput ladies were given complete religious freedom in his kingdom. Akbar gave higher posts to Rajput chiefs in his administration. Raja Man Singh and Raja Birbal, these were two of his most trusted officials, and they were from the Rajput families.
Maharana Pratap. Not all Rajput rulers, however, accepted Akbar's hand of friendship, means few of the Rajput rulers only became the loyal officers of Akbar the Great. But there were some other Rajput rulers also who did not accept the overlordship or the sovereignty of the Mughal Empire, and they did not accept Akbar as their ruler. So Uday Singh, the ruler of Mewar, who was also later came to be known as Rana of Udaipur, fought against the Mughals. Akbar defeated him in Chittor in 1567 and went on to conquer Chittor and Ranthambore. So in this way, Chittor and Ranthambore were added to the Mughal Empire. Uday Singh's son Rana Pratap continued the fight against the Mughals. Akbar defeated him in the Battle of Haldighati in 1576. After this battle, Rana Pratap escaped into a mountain fortress and continued fighting against the Mughals throughout his life. He also recovered a major portion of his kingdom except Chittor. Akbar was never able to conquer Mewar fully. However, he decisively suppressed Rajput power, because of which Rajputs were never able to regain their power or all their lost territories.
Later conquest of Akbar. Akbar built a vast empire during his reign. He conquered Gujarat in 1572. Buland Darwaza, or the Door of Victory, was built in 1575 AD at Fatehpur Sikri by Mughal Emperor Akbar to commemorate his victory over Gujarat. Then in 1574 and 76 he conquered Bengal and Bihar. Between 1585 and 1595, Kashmir, Sindh, Kabul, Baluchistan, and Kandahar were added to the Mughal Empire. He annexed Odisha in 1592. After consolidating his power in northern India, Akbar turned his attention towards Deccan region. In the Deccan, Akbar brought Berar, Khandesh, and parts of Ahmednagar under the Mughal rule. Here mention must be made of another brave Indian queen, Chand Bibi, the ruler of Ahmednagar. She tried hard to defend her kingdom against the Mughal forces. Mughal administration under Akbar. One of the significant contributions of Akbar's reign was the establishment of an efficient administrative system. Mughal administration under Akbar was a mixture of Central Asian and Indian tradition. Akbar gave the Mughal India one official language, that was Persian, a uniform administrative system and coinage, and the common system of weights and measures. It was a centralized monarchy with Akbar holding absolute power. Absolute power means when a king is the only authorized person to take all the decisions. Reports from nobles and department heads were read out to the emperor at a particular time, means at a fixed time. Their meeting was held in Diwan-e-Khas, means the hall of private audience, where Akbar used to meet the nobles and the department heads only. Akbar held his court for the general public in the Diwan-e-Am, also known as Hall of Public Audience. Administrative system under Akbar can be grouped under four heads: central administration, provincial administration, revenue administration, and army administration. Central administration. Akbar's system of central administration was a combination of Persian, Central Asian, and Indian traditions. Its working and other details are mentioned in the literary work Ain-e-Akbari written by Abul Fazl. In order to bring together all the provinces of his vast empire into a single unit, Akbar set up a very strong centralized government. The emperor was the head of both civil and military administration. He took all the major decisions concerning the empire. He was the superior authority whose decisions on all matters, whether political, military, and judicial, was final. He was the commander in chief of the army and the supreme judge too. He called himself the representative of God on the earth. The emperor was assisted by a council of ministers. Some of the important ministers were Wazir or Diwan, who was the head of the revenue department and was responsible for all income and expenditure. The Mir Bakshi was the head of the military department. The Khane Saman was the in charge of the imperial household, means the royal household, the royal workshops called Karkhanas. The Sadr-e-Sadur kept records of grants and donations made by the emperor. The Qazi was the chief judge or the head of the judiciary department.
Provincial administration. Akbar divided his vast empire into 15 provinces. In today's term, we could compare it with states called subas. Each of these provinces was governed by a governor called Subedar, who had control over both military and civil affairs. The Subedar used to serve as a link between the provinces and the emperor and was also responsible for the administration of the provinces. The Subedars were assisted by a number of officers called Diwan, who used to keep records of the land revenue or the tax collected from the land. Both these officers exercised checks and counter checks on each other. In this way, corruption could not enter the Mughal Empire. Each Suba was further divided into sarkars or districts, and each sarkar was further divided into many parganas. A pargana consisted of many villages. The lowest administrative unit that time was the village under a panchayat. A number of officers were appointed to manage the affairs, means day-to-day working of the districts and villages. The Kotwal looked after the town administration and performed both police and civil duties. His main work was to catch criminals and to maintain law and order in the area. He had to maintain a record of people living in his area and keep a check on weights and measures. His office was called the Kotwali, a term that is still being used in India.
9 Gems of Akbar. There were 9 gems known as the Navratnas in the court of Akbar with exceptional talent in different fields. They were also known as 9 jewels in Akbar's court. These were Abul Fazl, who was the historian or scholar of that time, and he was an author too, who wrote Akbarnama and Ain-e-Akbari. Next Navratna was Faizi, who was Abul Fazl's brother, and he was also a scholar, and he translated the Mahabharata and the Ramayana into Persian language. Next was Abdur Rahim Khan-e-Khanan. He was the military leader and was famous for writing dohas. He translated Babur's memoirs named Baburnaama from Chagatai language to Persian language. The original Baburnaama was written in Chagatai language, which was translated by Abdur Rahim Khan-e-Khanan to Persian language so that the people could read it easily, because Persian was the common language that time. He had an excellent command over the Sanskrit language too. He wrote 2 books on astrology in Sanskrit named Kheta Kautukam and Dwatrim Shadyogavali. Next was Mia Tansen, who was a singer and musician in Akbar's court, and he is said to have composed Rag Darbari in Akbar's honor. The other rags, those were developed by Mia Tansen, were Rag Deepak and Rag Malhar. Raja Todarmal was the another Navratna of Akbar's court. He was the administrator and the finance minister, or we can say the revenue minister. Raja Birbal was friend of Akbar, who was famous for his intelligence and sharp wit. Raja Mansingh was the military leader and the high-ranking Mansabdar in Akbar's court. Fakir Azayuddin, he was a Sufi saint and scholar of that time. Mullah Do Pyaza was the last gem of Akbar's court, who was a scholar known for his wit. But according to some historians, he was an imaginary character created by Birbal. Imaginary character means who is not present in real, but then also he is calculated among the 9 Navratnas of the Akbar's court. Revenue administration. Akbar established an efficient land revenue system which continued till 1585. Land and trade were the 2 main sources of revenue that time. Akbar adopted Sher Shah's system of land revenue but introduced many changes in it. He appointed Raja Todarmal, who had served under Sher Shah as the chief revenue officer. Akbar's revenue minister, means Raja Todarmal, introduced a land revenue system which came to be known as Todarmal's Bandobast or settlement. The main features of this system were: first, the land was properly surveyed and measured. In the past, it used to be measured with a rope. However, the rope used to shrink when it was dry and stretched when it was wet. Hence, the measurements used to change every time. Todarmal introduced a new measuring device. It was a rod made of bamboo reeds joined together by iron rings. Now, land could be measured accurately. After measurement, land was divided into 3 categories: good, average and bad, on the basis of regularly cultivated areas and occasionally cultivated areas. The revenue was fixed according to the fertility of the land. In 1580, a system called Dashala was introduced. Under this, the average produce and the average price over the last 10 years were calculated. In Indian traditions, 10 means dha. The tax to be paid for the year was fixed on the basis of this average. Generally, one-third of this figure was the share of the emperor that could be paid in cash or kind. If crops failed due to some reason like drought or floods, the cultivators needed to pay only a part of the land revenue either in cash or kind. Akbar encouraged both internal and overseas trade. India exported textiles, spices, indigo and saltpetre to China, Central Asia and Europe. Indigo, it's a deep blue dye, and saltpetre is a white powder that is normally used for preserving food or for making matchsticks. Army administration or Mansabdari system of Akbar. The most important feature of army administration under Akbar was the Mansabdari system. Akbar reorganized the civil and military structure of his empire by introducing this system. The term Mansab means a rank or position. A Mansabdar was a person who held a particular rank. His rank used to determine his salary and his military responsibilities accordingly. Mansabdar's rank was divided into two, Zat and Sawar. The former determined the number of soldiers under him and the latter the number of horses he was expected to maintain. Means Zat determines the number of soldiers under the particular Mansabdar and Sawar determines the number of horses that Mansabdar was expected to maintain. The Zat ranks ranged from 10 to 10,000. Generally, those above 5,000 ranks were reserved for princes. The salary of a Mansabdar was fixed in cash. However, it was paid by assigning him a Jagir, means a piece of land, taxes from which would be equal to his salary. He was expected to collect revenue from this Jagir, and with the money collected, he used to maintain his household expenditures and also pay his troops. Mansabdars were promoted, demoted or transferred according to the wishes of the emperor. A Mansabdar's rank was not hereditary. When a Mansabdar died, his Jagir was taken away and given to someone else. Was not hereditary means the Mansabdar's rank could not be transferred to his son after his death. Akbar also maintained a group of special soldiers called the Ahadis, and a strong artillery was also maintained by him. The Mughal army under Akbar was an efficient fighting machine as it kept away corruption and ensured military security together. Religious policy of Akbar. Akbar realized that to establish a strong empire he had to gain the confidence of his Hindu subjects who were in a majority. Subjects here means the Hindu public living in his empire. He followed a policy of tolerance and mutual coexistence, and he gave equal treatment to all his subjects, means to all his citizens. Religion was treated as an individual's private affair, and the people have the freedom to worship as they liked. Akbar adopted numerous measures to show his secular spirit. He abolished the pilgrim tax in 1562, a tax that was paid for taking bath at Hindu holy places such as Banaras, or we can say Varanasi, and he also abolished the jizya tax in 1564, a tax that was paid by all the non-Muslims and was long opposed by the Hindus. He abolished the practice of forcibly converting prisoners of war to Islam. Akbar allowed and sometimes even encouraged the Hindus to build temples. He also gave grants to many temples. Akbar participated in Hindu festivals such as Holi, Diwali and Raksha Bandhan. He also got the holy books of the Hindus translated into Persian language. Ibadat Khana. Akbar was interested in learning about different religions. He wanted to create the spirit of love and brotherhood among the people of all religions. In 1575, he built the Ibadat Khana, means the hall of worship at Fatehpur Sikri. On every Thursday, he held debates and discussions with the religious teachers of all religions, including Hindus, Muslims, Jews, Zoroastrians, Jains, and Christians. Tauhid-I-ILAHI or DIN-I-ILAHI. Akbar believed that all religions speak the message of love, respect, and peace. He felt that if the common ideals of all religions could be combined to form a new creed, means religion, the people of his empire would benefit greatly from it. Therefore, in 1582, he suggested a religious path called the Din-I-ILAHI or divine monotheism, the religion of one God. He also declared himself as the spiritual guide of his subjects. Din-I-ILAHI was a very simple path. It encouraged belief in one God. The practice of worshipping the sun, fire, and other sources of light was an important feature of this path. He also discouraged the killing of animals and the custom of sati. Sulh-e-Kul means universal peace or peace with all was another important principle. Akbar's Din-I-ILAHI was aimed at achieving peace, tolerance and unity in a country of diverse religions. Some historians say that Din-I-ILAHI was very similar to Ashoka's policy of Dham. Din-I-ILAHI was not a new religion. It did not have any rituals, sacred books, places of worship or priests. It was only a code of moral conduct which included not to eat meat at least in the month of their birth, to give alms on their birthday and to do good to everybody. Very few people accepted it. Raja Birbal was one of the few who did. Others, such as Raja Mansingh, openly disapproved of it. Means Raja Birbal was the one who accepted it, and on the other hand Raja Mansingh was the another Rajput who openly disapproved of it. Akbar never forced anyone to follow the new religious path. Din-I-ILAHI faded out after Akbar. Akbar's secular ideas were followed by his son Jahangir. Cultural contributions in the field of architecture. Akbar was the first Mughal emperor who undertook construction on a large scale. His reign saw a fusion of Persian, Central Asian and regional styles of architecture. This gave birth to a new style. This style is best visible in the structures at Fatehpur Sikri, the new capital that Akbar built near Agra. The buildings here are in red sandstone. With a large artificial lake, it included many buildings such as the Panch Mahal, Diwan-e Khas, Jama Masjid, Jodhabai's Palace, Ibadat Khana, the tomb of Salim Chishti, and the Buland Darwaza. The tomb of Sheikh Salim Chishti is, however, in white marble. The architectural style prevalent in Rajasthan and Gujarat is evident in different structures at Fatehpur Sikri. Akbar built many other monuments also. The Agra Fort is an impressive structure among them. Within it is the beautiful Jahangiri Mahal. Next architectural structure was the tomb of Humayun in Delhi, that is built on a raised platform and placed in the center of a garden. It is built largely of red sandstone and has a double dome of white marble. The tomb has both Indian and Persian architectural features. Cultural contributions in the field of paintings. Akbar patronized painters and calligraphers. He established many royal kharkhanas or workshops. In these workshops, many painters used to work. According to a contemporary source of that time, Akbar employed over 100 painters. The paintings had varied themes. A majority of themes depicted scenes from the life of Akbar, that of the royal court, images of animals, plants, humans, battle scenes, and of hunting. Some paintings were based on Indian and Persian stories and legends. Painters also decorated books with beautiful miniature paintings. Miniature paintings are detailed paintings done in small sizes. The colors used in these paintings were made from mineral plants like indigo, precious stones, conch shells, pure gold and silver, and the fine brushes used to paint were made from animal hair. Jaswant and Daswant, these were the two famous painters of this period. In 1567, Akbar ordered the preparation of a lavishly illustrated manuscript for the Persian translation of Hamza Nama. It had over 1000 pages, all beautifully illustrated and decorated. The Babarnama, Akbarnama and Tutinama were also illustrated and decorated later on. Cultural contributions in the field of literature. Akbar encouraged Persian literature. He had the Ramayana and Mahabharata translated into Persian. Books in Arabic and Turkish were also translated into Persian. Many original works of that time were composed in Persian. Abul Fazl wrote a biography of Akbar called the Akbarnama. A part of it is called Aine-Akbari. Akbar also patronized Hindi poets. His reign saw a tremendous growth in Hindi literature. Vallabhacharya, Keshwadas, Tulsidas and Surdas, these were the famous Hindi poets of that time. Tulsidas wrote the Ramcharitmanas. Surdas wrote the Sur Sagar. Prem Vatika or Raskhan and Satsai of Bihari. These were some other popular works composed in Hindi during Akbar's reign. Cultural contributions in the field of music. Music flourished under Emperor Akbar. Abul Fazl tells about 36 musicians, some of whom were women, who used to play music in the court of Akbar. The most famous among them was Mia Tansen. He composed many new ragas, the most popular among them being Rag Darbari and Rag Deepak. It is said that every evening Mia Tansen sat in a seat in the middle of Anup Talao in Fatehpur Sikri and sang his ragas. Akbar died in 1605. He was an empire builder, a good administrator and a kind ruler. He built a vast empire and gave the empire political and administrative unity. He resorted to war only when all the other means failed. He did a great service to the nation by bringing about religious unity. He promoted art, architecture, literature, music, and painting and gave them unique Indian color.